there seems to be a problem with men when it comes to saying sorry. When they are wrong and they know they're wrong, even when they know they're wrong, saying sorry is very difficult for us.
Yeah. This is why men fear to say sorry, because they feel like a man is always asking, am I man enough? Do I have what it takes? And they feel like when I say sorry, then I'm not coming across as man enough. A lot of relationships are just dying because a man wouldn't say sorry. And one saying of sorry, one time I went to bed and I didn't, those times during drama stage in marriage.
Yes.
And I don't want to talk to this lady and I'm just there and I'm facing the other side. She's facing the other side. You know how it goes. But you're a bishop. You don't understand.
Well, I do, bro.
But we are
this thing is well respect of persons, man.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking I should just say sorry and have a good night. And so eventually it's midnight. I turn around. I say, have you slept? No, I haven't. Have you? And I say, I am sorry, really. I'm just being stupid. And the rest of the night is good.
Welcome with Coffee with BDM. What a joy it is for us today to have a prominent speaker, a teacher, a man of God in the land. He was very, very instrumental, and one of the people who actually was there with Pastor Mbevi and others starting Mavuno Church. He is the founder and the director of Transform Nations, formerly Transform Kenya. And he also leads Man Enough and has got many, many portfolios. It's such a joy to have you, Pastor Simon Mbevi, with us today. I know you're really going to be a blessing to us. We've been looking for you for a long time, and actually we're hoping that you're going to be free and your calendar will allow you to just come and speak to us. And speak to us as men, yes, but also speak to us as the ladies, because there's a lot of misunderstandings that go on when it comes to the relationship between a man and a woman. Of course, the famous book, Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, still stands out and still has not been able to sort out the many, many differences we have. So welcome to the studio, and what a joy it is to have you.
No, thank you. I'm glad to be here. I've also been looking forward to be part of what great work that you're doing. So thank you. I'm really excited and looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Let me start by shooting straight on. What does it mean for a man to be the head in 2020? And by the way, let me ask, does it really still stand? Because I think when the Bible was being written, the men were the ones who were working and going and fending for the family, and bringing bread on the table. Being very patriarchal. Yeah. But today you find that the women are also going out and working and bringing the bread on the table and also adding the butter, if I may say.
Sometimes
is that still fashionable to talk about men being the head in 2020?
Well, it may not be fashionable for some of the people, but it's biblical for sure. And it only makes good sense. Being the head doesn't mean you have to provide all the money. It doesn't mean, what many women say, my money is my money, your money is our money. It doesn't really mean that. It doesn't mean you have to earn more. In my conversations with men, especially through the Man Enough program, I usually ask the men, would you marry someone who is earning way more than you? And of course, there are a few are excited, say, why not? That's a good blessing. But the majority of them would say, no, I don't want to marry someone who earns more than me, or has a lot more property, or it's a lot more powerful. And basically, it's because men see money as power, women see money as security. And so for a man to feel like you earn more, they feel like then you're the head. But that's not the meaning of that word. The meaning of that word means leadership in this sense. In any relationship, whenever two people come together and more, there must be someone who is facilitating what is happening there. There must be someone who, as it were, the buck stops with them. And that's what manhood and leadership is about in a relationship. If there's a family, if there's a marriage, someone has to be to facilitate leadership in that place. And the Bible happens to say the man will do that. Now, to me, it's not just just a privilege, it's a responsibility. It's a responsibility. Being the head I've been married now for 22 years. Being the head doesn't mean I make the final decision. There are times we talk and eventually her position becomes our position, but I facilitate that relationship. I facilitate decision making. I facilitate making decisions around finances. It doesn't mean I provide all the money. So that's what headship is about. It's a function. It's not seniority. It's not about who is greater now. It's not about who is better than the other. It's about who is going to facilitate this relationship. I think in social science, they say you can't have two heads. It's just going to be a disaster. Socially, it doesn't happen in any relationship. Just like I have a boss, the board chair of the organization that I lead. It doesn't mean he's superior to me. It just means someone has to be able to ask me some questions and help me, think through some discussions. So I believe that's what it means. It's someone who facilitates the dance of a relationship.
What happens then when the woman is leading and is the head? In a family setting or in a relationship setting?
Yeah, there's going to be chaos. And part of it, there are two reasons why that happens as I talk with men. Number one is when the man doesn't lead. When a man doesn't lead, nature abhors a vacuum. So someone is going to step up and lead, because the man is not leading. I've talked to hundreds of women who have said, I don't want to lead, but I'm forced to lead because the man is not giving leadership. So I've got to lead. He is not helping us make decisions. He's not raising up the issues, so I have to lead. Secondly, it's when the woman feels like, I can lead as well, and decides to take over in spite of the man wanting to lead. And this is what happens, Reverend. Men are such that if they feel like they have to fight for leadership, usually they back off and let it be. They don't like to have to fight for their leadership over and over again. So when that happens, for any of those reasons, and there could be more, then there's going to be social chaos. Number one, the man is going to feel emasculated. If he feels his input doesn't add anything to the relationship, then they're going to stay away. When they stay away, that's a recipe for disaster. He could focus on other things like work and other things, or he could be there and still follow, but definitely not be productive. So it's just not the nature of things. Okay. It's going to cause disaster. Okay. Conflicts, the man withdrawing and not being involved, so being passive. So at the end of the day, then what you wanted for the relationship is not going to be achieved. Okay, then the woman has submitted and the woman has allowed the man to lead, but the man has no vision. The man has no purpose. How does that then relate, and how does it tally to the woman, when a woman knows very well, hey, I want this guy to take, but he has no vision, he has no purpose. How does a woman feel? How does a woman feel in that setting? Yeah, that's very hard for women. I've talked to some and they say, well, I want the man to lead, but he doesn't know where he's going. Neither does he know where we could go. And I have some visions. And one of the first things I tell the women is, don't dim your lights because the man is not playing his role. Make sure you still go for your goals, but do it in a way that doesn't completely mess up the relationship. So you could be able to talk to him. I love when they come to the program and we challenge them. We say you can't demand leadership or want to lead if you're not playing the role of leadership. So rise up, have a goal, know what you want and work together. So I should tell the women, don't give up your dreams. Still pursue them, but don't use it to kick off this guy. Where it's possible, do two things. Number one, urge him on. Talk to him. There might be a reason why he doesn't have a vision. Maybe he has been crushed before. Maybe he has gone through something. He has been emasculated in one way or another because of experiences he has gone through, failure, taking a risk and then it doesn't work, going through father wounds, mother wounds, different things. And so help him out. Maybe he just needs a nudge and an understanding for him to heal up. But secondly, if it's not working with the nudging and everything, then get to see a counselor and have a conversation, because then there's a crisis in that relationship. Okay. This brings me then to ask, in a relationship,
I do believe there are different roles.
That's right.
What would you outline as the role of a man to a woman or to a family?
Well, that's a good question. Now, whenever we do Man Enough, we define masculinity as 5 things. Number 1, we say the man needs to take initiative. Every woman I've talked to, and 2 years ago we were writing a book for women called Ezra. And so we did focus groups in different parts of the world. We did in the US, in the UK, in India, in different places. And it was interesting to hear from all of these women the same thing. I want the man to take initiative. I don't want to be the one taking initiative all the time. That happens a lot in every area of relationship. Women want the man to take initiative. The men also feel good when they take initiative. It's not all the time, but to make sure that they are being the first ones to ask questions, to think about where the family is going. So taking initiative is number 1. And women get frustrated when that doesn't happen. Number 2 is being able to live responsibly, to have character, and to relate with character towards a woman. Because integrity is the foundation of leadership. And so being able to tell the truth and not lie, being able to be faithful, just to have the kind of character that causes a woman feel, I can trust you to lead me. So that's living responsibly. Thirdly is leading sacrificially. So doing leadership functions. For example, being able to say, let's sit down together and let's talk about finances. We're not doing well. That's leadership. Being able to initiate a conversation. Being able to say, let's talk about our goals for the next 5 years. So doing leadership functions. Number 4 is loving faithfully. I think the Bible says in Ephesians chapter 5, husbands, love your wives. And loving is caring enough to know what the woman needs and then giving that to them. Now, we like to say women are very complicated, but I think when we listen enough, and Miles Monroe used to say, because they were created when we were asleep. When we woke up, we couldn't figure out. But I think love is when we listen long enough to know what the woman wants. If she gets excited with flowers, it doesn't make a lot of sense to many men. They just feel like, why am I buying something you throw away after a week? But to her, that's what she likes. So give it to her. That's love. It's a kind of love that says, I want to be there for you. I want to hold your hand. I want to walk with you. So loving is a leadership function as well. The way men want to be loved is submission and respect. The way women want to be loved is leadership and taking care of their personal needs. And just being there for them, listening to them, taking them for dates. It never ends. 28, it's 2 years later. My wife still wants those little sweet things, still wants me to say, your hairdo is excellent, this and the other. So just being there to do that, loving that woman, the way she wants to be loved, not the way you want to be loved. And lastly is building a name that would be a legacy. Women are very careful about legacy, about security. Where are we going? What's going to happen in the future? So a man gives leadership and a blessing to a woman in a relationship by thinking about the future and knowing what's going to happen to the kids when they get to college. Do we have investment? Are we building at the kind of legacy that is going to bless the family? So forward thinking and planning.
Wow. Well, then this brings me to a question of wondering. I mean, people have started out in love. They love each other so much.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant. It's going on well. But then you get to a place where the man begins to abuse the woman. What drives a man to the edge of beginning to abuse the same woman he claimed that he loved in the first place?
Yeah. It's a good question, and unfortunately, abuse, and there are different forms of abuse. It could be emotional, it could be physical, sometimes it's sexual, but different kinds of abuse. And why men get there is because sometimes we need to get into the head of a man and understand the psychic of a man. Number one, a man celebrates his masculinity through performance. As Miles Monroe also used to say, that man was given a work to do before he was given a woman to love. So the men, when their work is not doing well, they get stressed. That's a big stress for them. And when they get stressed, they don't know how to handle stress well. Psychologists say when men handle stress, then it's about flight and fight. It's about, I want to fight this off. I want to fight everything that feels like an enemy, or I want to run away from it and get into a cave. That's basically how men deal with stress, unless, of course, they have understood how to deal with it better. For women, that's not how they deal with stress. When they're stressed, they reach out. They want nurture. They want to talk it out. Men don't want to talk it out when they're stressed. They want to go into a cave. They want to stew over it, sometimes just do nothing and wait there. And when they feel at that point this woman is just not understanding me and is coming at me, then they feel like the woman is an enemy at that point. And a lot of men don't know how to handle their anger, so they end up getting abusive. Of course, again, I'm not condoning that. It's not what real men do. They get to control their anger and do what they need to do to make sure they don't get there. But to understand the psychic of men, why they get there. So they're frustrated about their job or what is not happening out there. Number two, men don't know how to process emotionally charged relationship issues well. Women have this advantage, and it's a blessing from God, that they are able to work from both sides of the brain. In other words, put words into their emotional feelings to and fro. Men don't do that very well. It's just a struggle. So when a man feels like she's not understanding me, and it's a emotionally charged situation, and the woman is able to express herself well, reach into her brain and pick up things that happened last year that are related to this, then a lot of men feel such a frustration. They don't know what to do. And some of them, what they feel they could do is hit the woman or be, abusive in terms of words. It's because they're frustrated. They don't know how to explain themselves or how to win the argument. And you don't have to win. Sometimes you just need to be heard and to hear the other person. And so a lot of men end up there, not because they wanted to get there, but they have not learned how to process their emotions and be able to handle a conflict without losing it. And it's not right. So this is what I advise men who find themselves having a tendency towards violence or abuse, emotional, verbal, or physical. You've got to know how to deal with anger. When you get angry, you cannot shout, you cannot, use your hands. You can't do that. So you need to know what to do. If you need to walk away and cool off, drive off and come back, and don't hit other people's cars out there. Come back, or take a walk, or go golfing. I know you do golf. Men like to release their steam on something. So when they hit the ball, they feel like they've let it out. On the one they kick the ball or do something else. So understand how to process your emotions as a man. And here is a hint to the women. When you see your man is feeling like a cornered animal, don't keep pushing. Just leave him alone. Don't feel like I've won, let me just get over him and kill him out. No, don't do that. It's not going to help you. If you see the man is frustrated, he doesn't know what to say, and you're asking him, for example, and you could be asking about a genuine thing. I found this text, in your phone. Who is this person you are talking to? And you push him to a degree where he doesn't want to talk, he's shouting, you can see he's irritated. You don't have to keep pushing it. Leave it until he cools off, because the more you push it, the more a man feels cornered, the more he doesn't know how to react. And according to that psychology, he's going to end up being either physical or saying something that makes him get off, the corner.
I think it's good to note that. Women, you've heard that men don't operate very well when they're cornered. Please, a lot of men can handle pressure. Yeah. And if you feel the man of God or whoever you're dating or your man in your life has gone to a place where he's so cornered, for whatever issues that you're discussing, it's good to give him a break, because most of the time they don't know what to say and they keep quiet. And by keeping quiet doesn't mean that he's ignoring you or he doesn't love you or he doesn't want to respond to you. He will respond the right time, maybe with the right words. Sometimes it's good to keep quiet than say the wrong thing. I think so. I think sometimes it's good to just, we're being advised here, just to cool it off instead of saying things that you might regret. And this happens a lot with women, particularly when there's an argument.
Yeah.
What would you say is below the belt tackle for women? Because women sometimes can put men down so much and push the man to a place where the man says, no, this one, I'm being pushed beyond, What is below the tackle, for below the belt tackle, really, for the man?
I think it's when you attack the core of a man. And the core of a man is his identity and also his performance. If you make him feel like a failure and a nobody, the man doesn't know how to handle that, because men live for that. And it's interesting, in Ephesians chapter 5, the Bible says, women, respect your husbands. Men, love your women. And for a man, love is spelled respect. Love is spelled respect. Let me give you an example. There's a lady who brought this lady to the counseling room and made him sit down, and you could see the man didn't want to be there, but was given ultimatums. And so he sat there, and the woman began to say, this man is so useless, this is what he does. And she's talking and said, stop. And I looked at the man and said, if this is how you get talked to, even me, I wouldn't be in that relationship. Because it was ridiculous, the way she was referring to him. I think for a man, respect is everything. Respect me and who I am and what I do, and don't insult me in my personality, because that makes a man feel completely useless. When a man feels useless, he really doesn't care at that point.
Yeah.
For women, of course, it's security in who they are. For men, it's security in what they can do. If you tell them, for example, if you insult them in their performance in bed, if you insult them in their performance in life, if you tell them they can never amount to anything, things like those, they get to the core of manhood. And at that point, he just feels like this is too much. I can't.
Yeah.
So even in an argument, be respectful. Be respectful. Whatever you tell him, say it with respect, knowing that man, ego is a big thing. Ego is just a big thing, and you don't have to keep, just massaging the ego, but you need to respect that ego, because it's just how God created us, and we are dealing with it, but we need your help. So don't insult me in that. Don't make me feel like nothing, feel like a no performer, feel like a failure, and feel like nobody respects me. That's the deal breaker for me.
I think that's true, because I think there's nothing that deflates a man like when he's attacked when it comes to his manhood. When the woman tries to really put him on the floor and trample over him. And as you say, as far as what he does, because we are performance-oriented kind of people. And women need to know this. Women have to understand this. Please, as we've had tonight, for us, if you respect us, you love us. I think for you women, maybe I stand to be corrected. For you, I think if we spend time with you also, that could be spelled as love. Don't you think
that's
so?
That's right. Spending time and meeting your needs, your personal needs, that's what feels love to the women. To the men is that respect. That I know you're the man of his house. My wife has a habit of once in a while just doing a celebration for me in the home with the kids. Like the other day, I just went to the house and found 40-something reasons why you're the man of his castle.
Wow.
And they had written it and painted it everywhere. When a man feels respected like that, he wants to come home. But when he feels when I come home, I'm just being told, where have you been again? What have you been doing? You're such useless. That's why I buy everything here. That man won't come home. He's going to find another place to go.
Let me ask you maybe a very contradictory maybe question. Can a man rape his wife?
Well, legally, being a lawyer, I remember we did some cases in college about the possibility of that. When a man says no, when a woman says no. So legally you can, at least according to some cases which have been decided. When the man says, I said no, the woman says, I said no, and I meant no, and I was forced into it. So technically it's possible. Relationally, it shouldn't be possible. But it calls for, it shouldn't be possible if the two adults are respectful of each other. If a woman is not in the mood for one reason or another, and that cannot be every day or every week. She can.
Well, there's some who have headaches every night.
Have a headache every time.
All of them. I mean, there's some who have.
That will now be another case.
And you have to buy a whole sack of Panadols, but it doesn't work.
That maybe she doesn't take. So at that point, that's another issue. For example, I was counseling some couple, and the man said, "We have not had sex for 5 years. I don't know what I'm doing here. I keep asking her, and she says, I'm not feeling in the mood." So we had to talk and say, this cannot happen because this is important.
Now, let me ask you, is that relationship still alive, in your opinion?
Well,
when there's not been sex for 5 years?
Yeah. It's not viable unless, there's a reason. There's a reason. So I asked the man to explain, because I said, if you still want to be in this relationship, the woman, why is it you're not responding to the man? And the woman said, I've not been able to tell him, but actually I have a certain medical condition, and it's just been, it was very painful, and I was enduring. And I said, but you should have talked about it. If a man has no idea, then you're giving him other thoughts of where else he could go, but you're not talking about it. But if you're talking about it, there are solutions to that. But if you're just quiet or you are just punishing the man, then that's not a viable relationship, because it's not being consummated. It's not, sex is really part of the Bible even says, don't deny each other unless it's a reason for prayer. And you can't pray a whole year or a whole month. You can't pray for too long. So I think when it's taken so long and that's not happening, then there is a deeper problem that needs to be sorted.
All right. Let me then push it a little bit further. Mm-hmm. A lot of women use sex as punishment when they're not happy with their men.
Yeah. How wrong? How wrong? Because when a man feels, and I think we mentioned earlier, for men, sex is very important, biologically and emotionally as well.
Yeah, Pastor Kathy called us a bag of sperms the other day. We go spreading seeds, and we have to keep on spreading and spraying.
Yeah. Well, there's a health aspect to that. There's a health aspect to that they say that, especially when you get over 40, the formation of those sperms and staying in there then could be dangerous for your prostate health. But it doesn't mean, someone would die if they don't have sex. But that's important for release and biological health. Then sex is very important for a man. But secondly, it's a way of relating as well. They say women want love so that they may have sex. Men want sex so that they can express love.
Yeah.
So it's just a difference of perspective, and it's the way God has created us. So talk about it. Don't deny the other person. If you manipulate them with sex, then you're almost cutting off the legs of that person. That's not the relationship that you want, because then the effects will come back on you. So women, just to say, even when you don't feel like in the mood, one of the things I value my wife for this. My wife told me, I would never deny you sex, even when I'm not unwell, even when I'm unwell. If you need it and I can do it, I will respect you, because that's your right. And to me, that was very, of course, I'm human to know when she's tired, when she's unwell, when she's fasting. But to hear that attitude, I'm here to minister to you in this way, sexually. And for me to be there, because there are men also who deny their wives, as a way of saying, I don't want to, especially, between 45 and 55, sometimes the women are more active sexually than the men. So there are some men who use that as a way of control as well. Manipulation is witchcraft, whichever way it goes. Mm-hmm. So don't bring witchcraft into the relationship with sex.
Mm-hmm. There's so many relationships. So you have a man and a woman, and the dating can go for 7 to 8 years. Mm-hmm. What's your take on these guys who, let me say, guys who would not commit? And I think a lot of ladies have been crying and been asking. We have got a lot of people who won't just commit.
Yeah.
Have you had situations like that?
A lot. There's some of the men who come to Man Enough, and by the end of it, in fact, last week one was telling me, now that I've done Man Enough, I'll propose. I'll not keep buying coffee for no good reason. Because the men who are buying meals all the time and they're never saying anything. There could be several reasons for that, and it's not right. It's not right for the man, it's not right for the woman. Some men fear commitment, as you said. For some reason. Maybe they were hurt before, or they went through something that affected that needs healing. One of them was telling me, I just couldn't get myself to ask the woman whether she would marry me. He had been dating, and a few weeks before the marriage, the fiancé died. Now, that was like 7 years ago, and he's still struggling with that. So there could be reasons why a man is fearing to commit. Another one is just could be men who don't want to carry responsibility, and those are the men I rebuke. I say, you can't want your cake and eat it at the same time. You want a woman near you, but you wouldn't commit, because commitment is very important to a woman. That's security for the relationship. And if you're not committing for a woman, they feel like you're using me, but you don't want me. A woman needs to be wanted, and part of being wanted is being told, I commit myself to you for relationship. But when a woman just feels you're there, but I don't want you sometimes, then they feel misused, they feel like they can't figure you out, and women want to settle down. They want to define the relationship as soon as it's possible. Why? Because women give their heart very early. Men, they could give the emotions to a degree, but be able to hold out for a long time, just the way we are wired. But women can't do that. They either want to be all in or not in at all in the relationship. And so they want to commit. So men, I think what I would say, as soon as this looks viable, make the ask. So that the woman can trust, that you actually trust them to get into a relationship. Don't play with the emotions of a woman. Yeah. That you keep coming near, but you're not saying anything. Yeah. That's very stressful to a woman.
Wow. Well, let me ask you then, do you think that relationships as we know them are under a big threat today because of, for instance, the gay movement, the lesbian movement, LGBT is coming in, and men dressing like women and behaving like women? Do you think relationships as we know it are under a big threat because of that?
Yeah, it's a big threat. I mean, the entire thing is an attack to gender. And I think for me to say, I think gender is not just a social construct. Gender is a spiritual reality. That's why in Genesis 1:27, the Bible says God created them male and female in the image of God. When we attack gender through homosexuality, through transgender, through these queer relationships, when we attack gender, something is lost at the core of our ability to relate one to another. And that completely, I mean, there's no future for marriage if this thing of LGBTQ doesn't get, if it gets condoned. And it's crazy because young people are trying these things out. I was in a high school some while ago, and I asked, how many of you girls have tried out lesbianism? And there were like 100 girls who stood up. Probably more were there who did not stand up. Now, it's really come to the young people. It looks cool. Some of the movies are beginning to show, the cool person is the one who can play both sides, or the one who is swinging this way. And for me, that's destroying the core of relationship. When gender is destroyed, then the ability to connect with each other and be complementary, because we were born to be complementary. For me to bring in my masculinity, the lady to bring in her femininity, and for these two to work together for the beauty of a relationship. When that gender is stretched out, or it's not well defined, or it's been reversed, then to me it's a beginning of a death to good relationship.
Wow. Talk to me about the relationship between a father and a daughter, because it has been said that daughters marry men who are like their fathers. Is that true?
They marry their dad. That's how my wife was very quick to say yes.
Because you were like the father?
Yeah, she told me, she taught me, the first few times you related to me, you treated me so well, like my dad.
Wow.
So I felt very comfortable when I was waiting for you to pop the question. And I said yes. And that's true. I think this is what happens psychologically. Between 0 and around 8, mom is very crucial in building the ability for connection in children, both male and female. Between around 9 and all the way to 16, psychologically, children begin to push away from their mother to get to know who they are, to find their identity. Now, during that time, they need to hear another voice affirming them in their identity and in their purpose. That's the masculine voice. So they're looking for that voice at that point. Now, if that voice is not there, or they have a bad relationship with their dad, then statistics show that many girls between that period and thereafter are only as confident as their relationship with their dads. So if a dad is there to tell them, this is who you are, I celebrate you for this, then they feel their identity is affirmed, and they feel like they can go and get the world. They can go and do what they need to do. A study recently, which was published in the US, showed that girls who had a good relationship with their dads are 5 times more likely to be confident. Are several times, I don't remember, more likely to pursue their purpose in life. So the voice of a dad is very important in the daughter. And when a dad is not there or wounds their daughter, something goes terribly wrong. I'll give you one example. One time I was talking about father wounds, and these were grown-up women. And this lady was in her late 40s. She was unmarried. She walked up to me and said, "Can you give me a father hug?" And I gave her a hug, and she wept like a child. And then I asked her, "What is wrong?" And she said, "You know, when I was, I think she said 8 years old, I wore this little dress and I came running, and I could imagine it in my head. Being a Kamba, it was yellow and flowery. And I could imagine that, and she came running to her dad and gave her a hug. And the dad said, you know, I am watching something. They're about to score. Get out of here. And she said, "Dad, how do I look?" She said, "Don't ask me those questions. Go and ask your mom." Do you know the kind of heart that she had at that point? She felt like, I'm so ugly that dad cannot stand me. From that day on, she concluded, I'm ugly. She told me that every relationship she has had, when a man begins to say you're very beautiful, she quits that relationship because she feels like he's not real. I'm ugly. So I looked at her and said, "You're very beautiful." And she began to cry even more. Said, "No, I'm not beautiful." That's the power of the voice of a dad. So I would say that dads are very important, very crucial in the formation of the woman in a girl. That's why I encourage fathers to do at least a crowning of a princess kind of ceremony for their daughters between 13, 14, 15. Organize a ceremony, affirm the femininity in your daughter and celebrate her. She'll never forget that. I did that for my daughter. I put a crown on her, a tiara, I gave her a ring. You know, I celebrated her. She talks about that all the time and cries about it. Wow. It's just very powerful for a girl.
Wow. So then that brings me to asking you, what would be your advice to single mothers? And it looks like singlehood is fashion now. Yeah. Single ladies, you know, get to a certain age and they can't take it, and they want a baby. Yeah. You know, others get a baby, you know, by default. Others is by choice. Yeah. You know, what would be your advice then in light of the importance of the male voice in a family setting? Yeah.
And we talk a lot to single moms. We call them silver ladies. So we have a meeting regularly to talk to them. And that's what I usually tell them. If a father is available somewhere, avail a relationship between the children and their dad, wherever he is. If that's desirable, if he's a violent man and, you know, is going to destroy them, then don't do that. But if you can, avail that relationship, because you might have had differences with the dad, but for these kids, that's still their dad. Secondly is to say father hunger is very deep. I'm dealing with a lady right now who met the dad 2 months ago, and she's in her late 30s for the first time. She has been looking for years She came to me one time and said, I have been so hungry just to get to know my dad, but my mom never told me, and my mom died. So I don't even know. And I'm doing research. My aunties wouldn't tell me. She did research for more than 10 years to find the dad. Last year, 2 years ago, for the first time, she met the dad. When she met the dad, she called me and she was crying like a baby and said, I saw him like this and I felt like I'm alive now.
Wow.
That's a hunger of a child for a dad. So what do you do when he is not there? And when, like my dad died when I was 8, and my music teacher became like a father alternative to me. Because even boys long for a dad. And I remember what he did, and this was emotional. Form 2, he called me to the front, he affirmed me for doing music well, and he gave me a hug. That hug made me, as a Form 2 student, cry for about 2 hours.
Wow.
I felt like this is what I've missed. This is what I've wanted. And he looked at me and said, you're so smart, you can be a lawyer. I became a lawyer because he told me that day.
Amazing.
That's the power of a voice of a father.
Amazing.
So I tell them, my single moms, find a father alternative. Find someone who can speak into the lives of the children.
I think that's important.
It could be a relative, it could be a coach, it could be a youth pastor that you tell the kids once in a while, go out with your youth pastor, go for a walk, and you just tell the youth pastor, speak into their lives. I've had some single women who have come and brought their son and say, I don't know how to talk to this son, take him out, talk to him, and bring him back. And just hanging out with the son for a day completely changes.
Yes.
And I think churches could organize this, where once in a while the men's ministry takes the kids of the single moms and goes out with them for a day and just does some activities together, speaks into their lives. That would do a great deal. But if a lady is able to get a relative, an elder brother, someone close to the family who can get involved in the long term, that's excellent. But at least create an opportunity for these kids to hear the voice of a father figure in their lives.
Oh, that's important. I think all the single ladies, I know some of you are there, most of you actually are there, not because you chose to, but it's important for you to have that voice, the father figure voice, just as we have been advised, which will come in very handy, in solidifying the relationship that your children will have even with the future. I have a question for you, Pastor Mbevi.
Yes, sir.
There are lots of women who are complaining about they have a man in the house, but it's like a mama's boy. Have you ever heard about mama's boy? Everything this man does, he has to consult the mother. Yeah. Everything this man is going through, even what he's eating for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it's like they have a relationship, And I don't know why it looks like even mamas enjoy it.
Yeah, of course they love it because they feel like this is my baby. There's one who was brought into the counseling room, and the woman said, I don't know what to do with this man because of that. He's always consulting the mom. And so I said, give me an example. He said, the other day we were talking finances, and we agreed to buy a plot. And he said, hold on, let me call my mom. And he went out and called the mom, and the mom said, I don't like the idea. So he came back and said, unfortunately, we can't do it. Mom doesn't like it. And he has been like 3 years married. So I had to tell him, you need to go home and kiss your mom bye-bye. And realize that's why the Bible says a man shall leave his father and mother. Because he can't be a husband if he has not left. He can't start a relationship if he has not left. And it means that the mother's aprons were never cut. So that's there. And part of it is when a boy is raised up in a single parent home, and there's no other man to pull out, because what men do and fathers do is they receive the boy from the mother's hands and gets to teach him masculinity. Yes. When that never happened, and it's not even the fault of the boy, he just didn't have a man to call him out. And so he is there, and all he knows is a good mother and all of that. Now, a lot of mothers also don't understand, so they continue to perpetrate that. Like I had to rebuke a mom the other day who told me the son is 12 years old, still sleeps in our bedroom. They just share the same bedroom, you know, two beds there. And I said, what are you doing to this boy? And said, actually, it's not about the boy. It's for me because I feel lonely and I just need someone within the room. And I said, well, you're misusing your boy because what you're trying to do is get him so close that he's going to get too protective of you that even in the future, it still feels like he owes you something. So it's going to be very hard for him to separate, to create his own relationship. So I think both of us need to work to make sure this doesn't happen.
Yeah.
The boy, the man, if you are in this kind of unhealthy relationship, you need to cut it off and tell your mom, you know, I can't be in this, and build a relationship. And if he cries, it's okay. If it's hard for him, it's okay. You've got to be man enough to cut the cord, to be a man to marry someone else. And then mothers also to say, please don't do this to your boy. You're killing your boy. You're smothering your boy. He's never going to grow up. His masculinity is going to be under shade. It will never find light and be able to grow. And so stop that and allow the man to be a man. A good mother releases a boy. I mean, even Jesus' mother had to do that. When the boys, Jesus said, I was out in my father's business. Again, remember, it was around 12 and thereabouts, and he needed to shift the focus from the mother to the father's business.
Yeah.
And so that's a psychological fact that needs to happen. And let's reduce the number of mama's boys because it's destroying marriages.
Well, I remember when my son was born, my wife, was having our son in our bedroom for a while. And a few months, I think, when he was about 6 months, he was still sleeping with us. Yeah. And I sensed that thing was going to happen. Yeah. He was only 6 months, and he was so used to sleeping in our bedroom. Yeah. And I had to get to that place where I told my wife, let him go to his own bedroom. That night we took him to his bedroom. He cried the whole night, but he never cried again. Yeah. And he slept in his bed, you know. Yeah. And from that time, he never slept in our bedroom and what have you. So I do understand where you're coming from in terms of having the nerve to do the right thing. Yeah. And so that we don't raise up people, you know, who don't have a backbone because of the way they've been raised.
That's true.
And can't stand to lead. A man has to be somebody who can lead. A man has to be somebody who can be leaned on. A woman has to lean on a man. I am a firm believer. I don't care how strong the woman is. They get to a certain age where they need a man.
No, and they also agree, I've interviewed some women who are CEOs and they say, even at the end of the day, even though I'm doing all of these things, I want to hear the affirmation of a man. So it's a natural thing. It's not a feminist thing, masculinity thing. It's really a natural thing. Even the strongest of women wants to be able to talk to a man and feel like, I have a man. And no woman wants a mama's boy for a husband. They're the ones who bring them to the counseling room. So it's neither good to the women, it's not good to the man. And lastly, just to say, the way we create mama's boys, women, is when we begin to do everything for them. You find that this young man is working and you're still paying rent for him because you're the mother and because you're rich. What you're trying to tell him is never leave. I'm here for you. And that man is not fit to become his own man and to start his own family. Wow.
There seems to be a problem with men when it comes to saying sorry. When they are wrong and they know they're wrong, even when they know they're wrong, saying sorry is very difficult for us. I don't know how some men say sorry. Some men think by having sex with their spouse is saying sorry.
Saying sorry.
What would you have to say about that?
Well, it's an ego thing, but now that's taking it further even to pride. I think a man has to swallow his pride and say sorry. This is why men fear to say sorry, because they feel like a man is always asking, am I man enough? Do I have what it takes? And they feel like when I say sorry, then I'm not coming across as man enough. That's not, good sense. That's not good sense. I believe the greatness of a man is also seen in his ability to apologize, to be humble, to be able to say, I've done it wrong. I'm human as well. I've done it wrong. So I celebrate men who say sorry, because what you're saying is, I'm still the man. It doesn't make you any less of a man. It just makes you strong enough to be able to say, I can apologize. And that doesn't make me lose my seat. It's like any leadership position. If a president said, I'm sorry to the country, I misled you on COVID-19, it doesn't make him less of a president. In fact, people get to respect him more, that he has acknowledged that he got it wrong. So men, let's not stress ourselves. I think we stress ourselves and we hold ourselves to a certain level. We can't get it wrong. We can get it wrong. And this is what happens when a woman hears a man say sorry. It has a way of endearing them to that man. Once in a while, God leads me. I don't just do it anytime, but God leads me once in a while to step in the shoes of men and say sorry to women for those who have been abused and beaten up by men, and saying, we're sorry for just using our strengths against you. And immediately you can see the breaking of those women, and you can see the respect that they give you for saying sorry. You never lose respect for saying sorry. In the contrary, you gain more respect because you're mature enough and comfortable enough in your skin to say sorry. So men, let's do it. It's not going to kill you. Part of it is socialization. We've never seen our dads say sorry. They never, take back their word. They just pretend that, they have revised their position. They don't say sorry. But it's not good. It's not good for relationships. It's not good for life.
Yeah, and even if you cannot verbalize it, I think you can text.
Yeah, or write,
it's easier. Or write a note and make it easy for you. And, by the time you come, of course, you've communicated, because I think some people struggle to verbalize, sorry.
And it gives you permission to let it out. Because when you say sorry, then it opens the door for conversations and relationship. A lot of relationships are just dying because a man wouldn't say sorry. And one saying of sorry, one time I went to bed and I didn't, those times during drama stage in marriage.
Yes.
And I don't want to talk to this lady, and I'm just there and I'm facing the other side. She's facing the other side. You know how it goes. But you're a bishop. You don't understand.
No, well, I do, bro.
But we are sleeping.
This thing is not respect of persons, man.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking, I should just say sorry and have a good night. And so eventually it's midnight. I turn around. I say, have you slept? No, I haven't. Have you? And I say, I am sorry, really. I'm just being stupid. I'm sorry for what I said. And she said, well, thank you for saying sorry. And we sit up and we talk for another 1 hour. And the rest of the night is good. And I'm just thinking, I would have denied myself a full week or a day because I wouldn't say sorry. How stupid it can be sometimes. So I think as men is to say, be man enough to apologize when you need to apologize. That's manly. It's not unmanly. It's manly to know that you are human, you can make a mistake, and it's okay to say sorry. And no woman in her right senses, or no woman worth her salt, would despise you for saying sorry.
What about the silent treatment? For me, I grew up and I used to see my father. My father was never physical with my mother. Never. Not one day. But then he would go silent for days and even weeks. Just quiet. He would come from work and not talk to anybody, That was like his response to when he was annoyed. And I thought it was even worse.
No, it's even worse because he's suffering. He wants to say something and he can't say it because he has committed himself not to say something. I think what we usually think is we are punishing the other person, but in the long run, we are punishing ourselves. Unforgiveness is not a punishment to the offender. It's a punishment to self. Some have said it's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. In fact, unforgiveness is allowing the other person to control you long after the fact. So, in other words, it makes good sense to free yourself by apologizing. Otherwise, you'd spend 2 weeks of stress. You want to say something, but you can't say because you're annoyed with this person. It's not good for your health. No wonder as men, we die younger than women because we don't process those things. We keep them within or we let them out in another way. And yet saying sorry could be the best way for you to be healthy that day, to be happy. So men, let's not stress ourselves for no good reason.
Yeah, I had a story of somebody who had a goldfish, and the goldfish had a thermostat. And that time, I think the thermostat went out of order, and the water got so hot.
Yeah.
And the water actually boiled.
Yeah.
The goldfish was found in the morning floating.
Yeah.
And the owner was wondering, did this fish scream before it died? And then he thought that how men die without screaming.
Without a scream. That's right.
You know?
Yeah.
Does a man's background dictate how his future will be?
Definitely. I think we are a product of our past in a big way. And so one of the topics we have in Man Enough is a wounded warrior. And we just look back at what has wounded you, what has hurt you, because that determines a lot what you've become. For example, I'll give you a quick example. Having lost my dad when I was 8 years old, and he died right in my eyes, just outside our house in an accident. Having lost a dad at that point, it made me as a boy grow to be very clingy. I always felt like relationships, I have to cling into it because otherwise this person could quit on me suddenly, like my dad did. And that wasn't healthy. And I struggled with that. So the past could determine how you relate in the future. For example, the way you are mothered could affect a lot how you see women and how you relate with people, because moms being the first people we ever relate with in life, some psychologists have said, they determine all your patterns of relationships in life. So they help you know whether to trust people or not, whether people will come through or not. So there are many times in the counseling table, I listen to people, I say, tell me about your mother. And I realized that was a problem. Or tell me about your dad. Because you don't have a confidence, a identity, you're insecure in yourself, so you're causing trouble to the other person. Or maybe you went through abuse when you were young. Or maybe you were compared a lot. I struggled with that in the first 2 years of our marriage. My elder sister used to compare me a lot and say, you're not like your brothers. Why can't you be like your sister? And I was younger than them. And so I grew up feeling like others are better than me. So this is what would happen. If my wife hinted at comparing me with another person, I would overreact. Because now I'm feeling, my sister used to do that, now you're doing that. I would see my sister in her and react to my sister, but now with my wife. And so I had to deal with that and realize she is not my sister. She's actually not comparing me. I'm just being oversensitive because of what I went through. So it's always good, and I tell people, before you get married, make sure you do background check so that you deal with the issues from the background, because over 80% of the conflicts within marriage are not conflicts in that marriage, are conflicts from families of origin. They have just carried them over. And they don't understand, and because they don't understand, they don't deal with them. And that's why during the drama stage, the second stage of marriage, you begin with dream, then you get to drama. Drama is the opportunity to deal with the deep issues. You only get out of real drama in marriage when you drill deep enough to know the root causes of the problems that you're having and solve them. And now you can live above them and make your own marriage.
Wow. What a powerful way of saying it. I'm just wondering, let me ask you, in the African setting, how do you take it when people, men or young men, express their feelings and their emotions publicly? Yeah. Kissing publicly and all those things. How would it sit?
Yeah. I know it's not easy, and yeah, there are some women who have said, as in a dinner, a wedding dinner, a marriage dinner. And I asked the women, what is one thing you'd like your husbands to do more? And these were people who are married more than 10 years. And they said to hold our hands in public and to kiss us in public. I asked the men, would you do that? They said, no. Culture is powerful. Culture is powerful. And because that's not something we see every day, it's not something we saw. We might do it when we are dating or when we are at the pulpit and we are getting married, we may kiss in public. But thereafter, you begin to draw back to your African madness.
Yes.
And you just find it very hard. And I don't think women should push the men to do it. because then they'll do it for you, but they'll be embarrassed. Some men can deal with it and be able to do it. Like, I don't mind holding my wife's hand in public. I don't do it all the time. But for her to insist on that and just make it very hard for me, then it's not something that we are doing for each other at that point. But it's not to say the men shouldn't do it. I think we should recover from some of that backlog.
Yes.
Some of that that we have carried over. We need to recover from it, because for women it's very important. And even if you're not going into kissing, then at least you can put your arms around her. She feels very secure in public when you do that.
Yeah.
Or hold her hand. Or just something that is romantic. For them, it's important. So do what is important for them, even when it's hard for you. But for women, don't demand too much. The man is going to run away. Because for the men, it's just not easy. In this culture, of course, now the new generation is not a big deal because of what they have seen and grown in. But my generation, our generation, and those who are just after us, it's still very hard.
Yeah, because I agree, because I think, like, as you say, culture is powerful.
Yeah.
But then also it brings me to a place of wondering, okay, these are the same guys who are showing their affections and emotions publicly, but they don't even last in marriage.
Yeah.
Our fathers and mothers didn't show it, but they lasted.
Yeah.
So what a contradictory kind of situation you have here.
Showing in public doesn't mean it's really there. There's some people who just do it for the public or for the person.
Yeah.
I think what is real is what is cultivated and becomes an overflow.
Yes.
It's not just a gesture.
Yeah.
It becomes an overflow. If you're doing it because it's coming from the heart, that's well and good. So it's good to show some romance, but romance doesn't mean only kissing and all of that. It could be just holding your hand. It could be different ways. For our parents, it was, I'm walking ahead of you, you're walking behind me. It was feeling like, I'm clearing the way for you.
Yeah.
And our mothers felt like, you
which is very offensive today.
Yeah, it's very offensive.
To do
so
that.
These things change with culture. They're not permanent. But love should endure, in spite of how it's expressed.
I want to ask you the last one, and maybe the most difficult.
Yeah.
Do you believe in
the
divorce?
The first one was really difficult. It's like you just ask difficult questions.
Do you believe in divorce? Can you be married to the wrong person?
Yeah, that's a hard one. Let me try and answer as a lawyer now. Divorce is a hard question, but sometimes it's a rescue, because the situation is bad. If it gets violent, and either the woman or the man, is receiving all of this violence. I rescued a man who had been violated violently for about 12 years. And he had endured this. He had even gone to hospital once because of being beaten by the woman. And at that point, of course, it's only humane to get this person out, because they're going to die. They're going to be killed in that. And he had died long ago in terms of his heart. He was very passive because of his relationship. Or another case where, another partner said, I already have a girlfriend, a boyfriend. It was a lady, incidentally. I already have a boyfriend. I've decided I want that boyfriend. So you make your choice. If you want to stay here, you stay here. But just know that every month I will go for a few days with my boyfriend. And of course, the man eventually had to leave. But it was very painful. So there are situations of either violence and abuse, or serial infidelity that the other person doesn't have the commitment to deal with it. Just getting to a point where the relationship is not viable anymore.
Yeah.
I think at that point, that's when divorce happens. And I think it's just to say, where we can deal with our issues, let's deal with them.
Yeah.
Why? Because divorce is painful as well. It's painful to the person. It's like death of a relationship. And so it's hard. It's really hard. It's painful to the children as well, because they get confused. They don't know who to support, and they're in a state. And it's not easy. But also it's painful to the family and the community. So divorce has its own challenges, but when it happens, it's because probably there's no option. But I should tell people, especially the younger people nowadays, they opt out too quickly for divorce just because they have a few things they have not dealt with. And they say, this is not the right person, we are incompatible. And I say, nobody is really compatible with the other person. It's how you deal with the issues. Many of them get through a time of conflict and they feel like this is over. But even when you leave that and start with another person, you still have the conflicts there. So I would say let it be a last resort.
Yeah,
Last resort.
yeah.
But it's possible and it happens. And it's just the fact of life. This is a sinful world. People don't change. People get nasty. You didn't see it coming. And you have to deal with it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks, man. I can't let you go, man. I just feel like I need to ask you more and more and more and more, you know.
Well,
so many questions are coming even as we continue.
Yeah.
And I keep on saying the last one, the last one, the last one. I've become a true Pentecostal preacher who closes 4 times.
That's right. You're one, so that's okay.
How about the women today? Normally, I think when I was growing up, it was the man who was considered a hunter. Mm-hmm. We were taught to hunt after a woman who's going to be your wife. Mm-hmm. You're the one to propose. You're the one to seduce. Let me use the word seduce. Yeah. But nowadays you find it's like the opposite. It's the women who are so forward. It's the women who are hunting after men. And does it put a man off to be hunted by a woman?
Most of the time it does. Most of the time it does. And sometimes I understand the women because they feel desperate.
Are men sleeping a lot? They have to be woken up. I mean, they have to be given hints.
Yeah, there are some women who call me and say, I see these men around, but they're not saying anything. Should I prompt them? And I would say, well, you can prompt them without denying them the permission to lead.
Yeah.
But when a man feels like you're the one on my case, then of course you come across as desperate, and a man feels afraid because they feel like then you're going to be on my case on most of the issues in marriage. So in a sense, it's a put off to a lot of men. For most men, take off. There might be a few men who may be confident enough to be able to confront back and be able to talk and say, okay, you have popped the question, but let me talk to you now and take over the leadership. Sometimes there are some men who need a little prompting for real. I think I've met some, Reverend. I've met some that really want to get married, but they just don't have the confidence and they're afraid. And if a woman, made it easier for them to say, then they say. But generally, and I think naturally, men are created hunters. And when they feel like I was hunted into this relationship, I was invited into it, and my voice wasn't there, then they might be on that receiving end for the rest of the relationship. And no woman wants that. Yeah. It's going to be frustrating. But once in a while, in case the woman hunts, and eventually we find the man just needed to go through man enough and get okay and take over leadership, then it's okay. But generally, women, just be careful. You could lose a good man because of your aggression. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow,
thank you so much. This has been Coffee with BDM, and we've had a fantastic time here with Coffee with BDM with Pastor Simon Mbevi. He does Man Enough, and he's such a blessing. He's a pastor, a leader, and I wanted you to take some moments and just share this video with as many people as possible and let them just glean from the wisdom you have received today. God bless you. This is Bishop David Morethi. Don't forget, Sunday, 10 o'clock to 11:30, 1.5 hours, right here at House of Grace. And you're all welcome. Have a great weekend. Bye for now.